Okay, welcome, everybody. It's so great to have you here. You have made it to Community Conversations. It's our 5th annual Community Conversations, which feels like a really big moment for us. We are officially kindergartners doing this work, which is exciting. This year, we're having our Community Conversations be all about the recent Supreme Court and legislative decisions that have happened kind of across the country. This is our first in our series today. We'll have 3 different conversations. This conversation is focused on tribal sovereignty. There was a recent Supreme Court ruling around the Indian Child Welfare Act, or ICWA. There was also some decisions by the Supreme Court around water rights, and a lot of other decisions in states all across the country that impact the Native community here and in other places. So welcome. We are the UPRISE Collective. My name is Brianna Bragg, and I use they or she pronouns.
My name is Stephanie. My pronouns are she and her.
And we're going to go ahead and let Ria introduce herself, and then we're going to jump into setting up a little bit of context today.
Welcome, everyone. Good morning. My name is Ria Graves, and I use she and her pronouns as well.
Awesome. So today we're going to share just a little bit about access. If you need interpreters, there's interpreters on your screen. We also have auto captioning, and we'll go ahead and post the transcript with this video as well. Once we are done today and post it on our YouTube, you can find the full series there. A little bit about the UPRISE Collective. So we're a 501c3 nonprofit. We exist in the Portland metro area. We serve all over the country now. We have folks that come join us for our events from all over, which is a lot of fun, and sometimes Canada. But we do all kinds of community work. We do equity and liberation work in the community, which means we do in-systems work and out-of-systems work. So that looks like some of our in-systems work is focused on harm reduction, which we're going to talk about a lot today. And our harm reduction work focuses on working with organizations, institutions, government agencies, and higher education institutions to talk about how to move us closer to liberatory practices for our communities that have to exist and work within those communities and within those systems. All of the funding that we receive from that goes into our free community work, which includes this program and other programs that we do. We do community conversations once a year. Our next series will be the Selah series, which is our BIPOC storytelling event series, which will be a lot of fun. And then we also do Kids Rise, where we focus on supporting kids in their art and in their practice of sharing and expressing themselves in a way that feels good for them. We also do book club, and we also have a bunch of other events that we do, including our Nothing About Us Without Us series. So we're just really happy that we have this wonderful group of panelists here to talk to you today. And before we get started, we're going to go ahead and give ourselves a land and labor acknowledgement. Almost everybody in the room is Indigenous or Native. So it's really, really exciting to be in a room full of all of these amazing, wonderful, powerful people. But let's take a minute to find ourselves a good, comfortable position for our body. Take a deep breath to ground ourselves. Release the tension of being up at 10 a.m. on a Saturday. And take just a deep breath together. And we want to call into this space our ancestors, those that have come before us and those that continue to do the unending work today of pushing us closer to the world of liberation that we all seek for one another. We want to remember all of the work that our ancestors have done to get us to this place, and all of the work and responsibility we have to move us closer in their vision. We also want to recognize our stolen, kidnapped, and enslaved African siblings who were brought to this country, whose labor was used to build the wealth of this country, while being systemically barred from retaining most of that. And we bring into the space these 2 communities, not at the exclusion of others, but because these are the 2 things. These are the 2 communities that have built this country that we see today, and all of our systems and all of the policies and all of the laws that we now interact with are based on the foundation of stolen land and stolen labor. And so we start there so that we can remember where we came from and remember that we are still here and we are still moving forward.
And our community conversations programming is a way to honor that legacy, a way to be in community with one another, with the recognition that in the face of oppression, we have always resisted. So as we talk about the different policy decisions, the different fights on different fronts that Indigenous communities are faced with, we offer this as an opportunity to pause and be together in conversation, not only about how these things are living and breathing in our bodies, but also how our ancestral wisdom, how our ancestral survivance, how our ability to build coalition and community in order to uphold our collective survival still lives and breathes in us. So we're going to talk a little bit about just where we're at around some of these things as people who hold these identities, a lot of the work that's happening in town and the things that continue to give us hope. And again, aligning with that truth, that universal truth, that as long as there has been oppression, there has been resistance, and we know how to resist, and we do it every day. So welcome, welcome, welcome to our panelists. This year, we are focusing, just like Brianna said, on these policy decisions that are targeted in our communities. This particular portion is about ICWA, water rights, legislative genocide. We have other sessions in our community conversation series that are around attacks on what people believe is critical race theory, right? Anti-Black education policies, whitewashing of history or deepening of whitewashed history, right? And we have another conversation that we'll be having around anti-queer, anti-trans legislation like Creative 303. So thank you so much for joining us and for being in community with us as we make meaning together. We're going to start with some community agreements as we have this conversation. And again, if you're watching us, or if you're watching this with us today, you're welcome to add comments, to interact. There's going to be a Q&A session if you have something that's sort of coming up in your heart to contribute to our conversation. But with that, we want to offer some community agreements. The first one that we really like is you are the author of your own story. And the way that you move through this world in community with others is a function of your identities, how you were raised, where you were raised, and all of our lenses around sort of the tapestry of justice work might be different, and that's okay. We're going to hold that in this space, unless, of course, we interrupt someone else's personhood or right to exist. Another community agreement that we really like is to take space and make space. We have people who are verbal processors. We have people who are internal processors. However you choose to show up in this space, conversationalists, you are right. So I'm not interested in telling you how much to add, but what I will say is that if those of us who are verbal processors are making it hard for people who want to contribute verbally to get into the space, that's the thing we'll interrogate together. Also, let's stay in our lanes. Let's talk about our own identities, our own communities, right? If we find ourselves speaking on behalf of communities we don't belong to, that might be something that we gently redirect. Obviously, we hold the community agreement of intent and impact. Intent is important when we are in relationship with one another, but never more important than the impact our words and actions have on the community members that we hold so dear. And the last community agreement that we will offer into the space is liberation and healing are possible. Nothing has changed in the history of the world unless somebody believed that it was possible. And after myriad attacks, myriad policies, myriad attempts to wipe us off the face of this earth, we are still here. And we're going to be here. So let's hold that in our hearts today too. So welcome.
For anyone that is tuning in and joining us in the attendees list, thank you for being here. We will have a raffle at the end after we wrap up. So if you stick around, we'll go ahead and put you in our name of wheels, and you will be in a raffle for an amazing book by an Indigenous author. All right. So now is the time where we're going to invite our panelists to please introduce yourself in a way that feels good for you. So You can share your names, your pronouns, cultural context, community role, anything else that you feel is relevant. And then we'll jump into our grounding question and get started. Awesome. All right. How about Rosella, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Good morning. My name is Rosella Stanley. My pronouns are she and her. I live in rural Wisconsin. I have 3 children and a home full of many other children. There are always many extra kids around. I most recently was the executive director of the Ho-Chunk Nation Department of Social Services. I met Brianna and Stephanie. We were in the same graduate program, and I'm excited to be here and a little bit nervous. And that's it. Thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Rosella. How about Will? Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'd be happy to. Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Will Miller. I use he, him pronouns. I'm Blackfeet and Cherokee from Oklahoma and Montana, and have the honor of serving as the executive director of the NAYA Action Fund, which is a C4 organization serving the Native community through political advocacy and electoral power building in Oregon and Washington.
Awesome. Thanks, Will. How about Dr. Gonzalez? Kelly?
Hi, good morning. Good morning. Thanks everyone for being here. It feels early to me, but this is a great way to start a Saturday, and thanks for creating this space for all of us to come together. So my name is Kelly Gonzalez. I am a citizen member of the Cherokee Nation, born and raised in Portland, Oregon. Mom to Ren and Caleb, who are finishing their last year of high school and entering their second year of college. So it's evidence of breaking a good cycle for my family, where I was the first in my family to go to college. I'm also a tenured professor at the OHSU PSU School of Public Health. And I want to just acknowledge and recognize that I'm the first Native to be tenured at that program, and only Native in a tenure track position there. And I raise that up just as like more evidence to see our radical awesomeness to resist systems and infuse ourselves in systems and address gaps within those systems for the benefit of our people. I'm also the founder and executive director of the Indigenous Health Equity Institute that formed in 2020 in response to the need to safeguard our communities in the face of COVID, and to again address the inadequacies and lack of capacity for our institutions of public health to take care of our Native Indigenous people and families. And the primary focus of our work is to decolonize public health in the workforce, in the applications of public health at the level of data, research, policy, and again, workforce. So it's great to be here, and I'm excited to see what unfolds and what we all have to share. Thank you.
Kelly. Mercedes, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. My name is Mercedes Whitecalf. I am a biracial woman. My mother is Native American, Oglala Sioux from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. She was a survivor of boarding school in the mid-50s to the early 60s. My father is African American. He is also part Seminole, but because of colorism and things that go on, he just identifies with the African American community. I am also a lobbyist for the state of Washington. I lobby for the NAYA Action Fund. I'm also employed by NAYA. I'm also a survivor of human trafficking, and I'm a person in recovery from alcohol and drug abuse. And I'm so honored to be here.
Thank you, Mercedes. It's so great that all of you can be here, but I just had the pleasure of meeting Mercedes and it's been wonderful. So thank you all for introducing yourselves. This was so great. I'm just so excited to be in a room full of all this amazing wonderfulness. Like, it's so awesome to hear you all introduce yourselves. And I just really hope that folks that are watching are as excited as I am.
Absolutely. And moving forward into our conversation, we have some grounding questions to help get things rolling, but don't feel bound by the structure of a panel. You don't have to wait for us to ask questions. Feel free to engage with one another. The entire idea of this conversation, of this series of events, is that this work is happening on many different fronts. There are many different ways to plug in, and we don't take these policy decisions lying down. So we're going to talk about how that shows up and how that lives and breathes in our community. So just getting us rolling. And for the people who have just joined us, remember, we do have captioning and ASL if that's something that supports your participation. Grounding ourselves in the space. What does it mean to engage in policy advocacy on stolen land in a country that was built on stolen land and with stolen labor? What does it mean to your community? How do you see it showing up in your community? What is it like to sort of hold that tension of policy advocacy in the bodies that we inhabit? Think time is always okay.
Well, this has been interesting for me to think about. I think for us here in Ho-Chunk country, our government is modeled after the United States government. And I don't know whose great idea that was. But of course, it's fraught with issues, tons of bureaucracy. In terms of our tribal laws, we try to pull apart the balls of yarn to fix issues, and we find that there's 100 separate balls of yarn, some of them very similar shades, and they're all just unwound and tied up in multiple knots and wrapped around each other. And I don't know, as far as other tribal nations, the state of trying to fix things. But I know for us, the bureaucracy is thick, and there is ample room in our structures for bad stuff to happen. Lots of corruption, lots of power grabs, and then all of that is laid on the foundation of trauma and trauma responses and negative cycles, hurtful cycles. And so when we're talking about policy advocacy, we kind of inherited the United States government once they came in and stole the land. And I think, it's really just kind of disastrous. It takes a long time for us to change things. All of the issues are so interwoven and so tied together. How it becomes like, how do we do this? How do we start over? Do we pull it all apart? Do we change it? And that's just really like on our tribal level. And then interfering with the counties, like for Ho-Chunk Nation, and I know Brianna is well aware of this, I don't know the rest of you, but we don't have a contiguous land base. So we don't have a reservation. We have pockets of trust land throughout the state of Wisconsin. And that land was purchased. We had 13 different removals in our history, and tribal members came back. Sometimes it would take them 5, 6, 7 years to walk back to Wisconsin. There were some that stayed here in the state of Wisconsin. They hid in swamps, they hid in areas that weren't easy, for the soldiers to round up. In some cases, the non-native neighbors protected them and told, you know, the cavalry, go, you can't bother them anymore. But for us, all of these pockets of trust land were purchased by tribal members and then put into trust. And so that means that there are lots of border towns in the state of Wisconsin, and the levels of racism and the competition for resources is ripe. And so then with, you know, each additional level, the county government, that's fraught with its own issues, the state government, the feds, you know, it's a big old complicated mess, pretty much. And I'll be quiet for a while.
Okay, I'll hop in. Thank you. You made me cry. Thank you for like talking about that. For me, so I've never been to my reservation. My mom ran away from boarding school when she was 13, and she got in trouble. And like in our culture, especially for Sioux, like it's always like we're always in trouble, always getting in trouble, always criminalized. And when she was 15, she was sent, she could either go to prison at 15 or because she was so young, the judge said, well, you could also go to Job Corps. So she went to Job Corps and he said, I'm going to send you as far away from your reservation as I possibly can. So he sent her to Astoria, Oregon, which is on the coast. So if she goes any further, she'd be in the ocean, you know? And I mean, but she never lost who she was. Like those 13 years definitely cultivated her. And I think like she taught me so much about my culture. She never let me forget who I was, like being Lakota. And it's a rich culture. It's very beautiful. The Sundance, the stories of our leaders and how they fought to stay here. But also what was done in the genocide, in the people, in the reservations. And I think like remembering what reservations were, they weren't like these, like now they're sacred places and we like look at them like, you know, a ceremony and just in a more positive light. But these were places that the government thought were wastelands and, you know, just of no value to the human race. And so they were like, we'll put the Indians there. You know, little did they know there's Black Hills Gold and oil and, you know, all these things that we need to survive. But just that sweeping away and erasing of my culture, or of our culture, sorry, sweeping away of our culture, kind of tucking it under the rug, like always remembering that, like that's what's at the core, and everything is just like, it revolves around that, and everything kind of builds from that. And so how I look at that is like, okay, I'm always being erased at the core. I'm always in trouble. I'm always criminalized for something, and that advocacy has to come there. So as much as I advocate to continue to do ceremonies and uplift my culture and the beauty of it, I don't overlook the genocide and the pain and the boarding schools, the addiction, like all those things that come with it. To not bring those into advocacy and policy would almost be like me romanticizing and exploiting my own culture, because it's not always pretty. It's actually not really pretty unless you're looking from the outside in. Because if you're looking from the inside out, it's not pretty at all. I think that, and then also knowing that sometimes, because we are government to government, like the U.S. government and the way it's shaped is it's not for natives and it's not for that culture. So remembering to remembering to look at like how I'm showing up in community and how I'm serving community, because it's very easy to exploit my own, like without my own cultural teachings. I have to be aware, and I've got to be honest with myself, and I have to always check in with the elders and say like, hey, this is what's happening. This is where I'm torn. And kind of looking for that direction, because I don't want to be one of those people, like, yeah, one of those people that says like, I'm here to protect and uplift my community, but I'm exploiting them, or I'm overlooking them, and I'm casting them away, and I'm erasing the culture without even realizing, you know, I'm perpetuating this. I think that's really important. And that kind of sheds some of that tough skin of government to government relationships and distrust, like knowing that it can be done if we're like checking ourselves on what's going on. And I do talk about my story when I advocate on policy levels, because I'm affected in so many ways and for my family. But I talk about myself and I talk about the experiences that I have not with specifics, but in the larger part, like being a woman, like I'm half Native and half Black, but Native women are more likely to be human trafficked. How did I, all the way in Portland, Oregon, never been on the reservation, get kidnapped for human trafficking? Like something is there, you know, and speaking up for that is important, not to exploit myself, but in a way that, and I talk to you about this, like just informs and sometimes uncaring public, uncaring government. Because if I didn't, who would speak up for me? Then I'd go on the list of the many natives with no name, just a number, sometimes no number. And I won't do that because then like I'm here for a purpose. I may not always know the purpose at the moment, but it doesn't mean I'm not here for a purpose. So I think that's where I show up, you know, and I think it's important to engage like policy or advocacy and policy.
I'm happy to go next. How's that feel for you, Will? Thank you, both of you for like setting us in such a rooted and grounded way. And I really appreciate, you know, hearing your stories and the way you move through in this work and how you're guided in this work. And I was reflecting on, you know, sort of my own, I think healing journey to be able to like do this work in a good way. It's like, well, what does that even mean in a good way? And I appreciate being able to like give that extended sort of legacy of this work, where I'm situated in the work and how I try to uplift this work. So I was born and raised in Portland, Oregon, and you know it's been a deep effort for me to connect to like my worthiness and my humanness and my nativeness, and that I'm even worthy to call myself Native and to say that I'm claimed by a community. That's a really tough one to say out loud, but it's like at the core of, I think, what stands in the way of me bringing forth dreams and visions, and also what propels me to go deeper and strive for more connections and guidance and mentorship and, you know, the love of my people, so that I can find a way to love myself, you know, so that I can stand and strengthen this work. And the reason that's important is if I come into this work believing the ideas of my potential and who I am and what I have to contribute based on the definitions or the limited views of white dominant institutions and histories, then that means I'm safer if I'm obedient. I'm safer if I oppress myself. I'm safer if I believe that I'm not worthy for good things. I think it just froze. Is it good? Okay. So that's sort of where I start. And I haven't actually said that out loud before. So thank you for that opportunity. I work in white dominant systems of higher education. I decided for myself that education was going to be my pathway for what I didn't know then was really this long journey of healing, to become a better advocate and community member. I chose the path of education, even though it was terrifying and confusing to my family, in particular, my mom, who does love me, but was so unfamiliar with what I was stepping into. And it was so difficult on me that, you know, she didn't like to see me suffering and struggling. So she really wanted me to stop that nonsense. That place is not for us, is what she would say. And so I just kept moving forward in it. And in that experience, I found public health. And that was the place where I could find that intersection. Of course, I didn't have that language at the time, but it was around policy and health and our voice. I just knew that it was like, you know, a way forward for me. But all along the way, you know, the system didn't understand me and it didn't support me. And it did a lot of things to push me out and keep me down. The Northwest Portland Indian Health Board was a critical support for me. The National Native Research Network was a critical support for me, where radical Native aunties came and surrounded and protected me and reminded me of my worth, and help guide me forward, continue to guide me forward. I also was completed my postdoc work at the University of Colorado in the Native Research Investigator training led by Spiro Manson and other Indigenous PhD and MD level folks. And that was the first time I'd ever had that experience. And one of my mentors in that group was Yvette Rubidoux, who was the director of the Indian Health Service at the time. And we were supposed to write our personal biosketch statements. And I situated it in victimhood. And we all did. There were 5 of us in that cohort. And because that's what I had been doing in order to get through the system, because that's what the system expected of me. Because if I stood in strength and in my own self-determined strength, it was always a violent experience and difficult experience for me. That white fragility, that confusion of like, what am I doing here? What am I contributing? What am I unsettling? I mean, that's what I'm realizing, is that I am an advocate and person of unsettling white systems just by being there. But what Yvette, Dr. Rubidoux, told us all is that, 1, throw out your biosketches and speak from your strength, and throw away those ideas that you have to be complicit to upholding a system and keeping a system comfortable because it can only see you in a particular way. But that is difficult, right? If you're too strong, if you're not strong enough, like, where's the balance in that? So I've been learning what that is, and it shifts from system to system. Whoever isn't standing in front of me, it shifts, right? And it shifts in part by whether or not the person in front of me sees Native people from a place of strength or some kind of threat. Do they even know that Native people exist? Like, I've had students confused by that, you know, that is a real thing. So that was an offering from Dr. Rubidoux to stand in your strength in this work. And then the responsibility for me to understand what that meant and how to do that. And that really did require, you know, support and guidance from my mentors and community and, you know, others doing this work, because there's so few of us. And how do we stay safe in this work when the system sees us as a threat that is unsettling the power structures and a legacy of colonial genocidal federal policies and system level policies? So I choose to work in those white dominant systems, I don't always feel happy with my choice. Sometimes I would just like to eat mangoes on a beach and just enjoy. But you know, along the way, I keep remaking the decision to invest and choose this responsibility. And I think a lot of what I do is educating, helping raise awareness, and trying to, within white dominant systems, and trying to do that in a way that remedies violence that we experience so that we can, you know, come up with solutions, alternative solutions rooted in Indigenous value, rooted in the contributions of Indigenous people, helping to promote the idea that, you know, as Indigenous people, like Jolene Joseph says, you know, as Indigenous people, we're here today because we are descendants of miracle survivors of genocide. And that's a really powerful understanding. And based on that, I know we have so much to contribute, especially within the field of public health. And an alternative solution than what is available currently. And so it can be tricky, right? To build a strategy, a method for this work, and the age-old question of, do we build things within the system or do we build something outside the system? You know, that challenges me all the time. And I don't know the answer. But it guides me for sure. Yeah. So, okay, I'll stop there. Thanks.
That was beautiful. Thank you, Kelly. And thank you all who've offered just your thoughts and wisdom. I echo all that's already been said. I think for me, what it means engaging in policy and advocacy on stolen land and stolen labor, and with stolen labor, like my work is rooted in policy, advocacy, community engagement, and systems change. Ever since I was a young kid, I've always done this type of work in the confines within the confines of Native communities. Growing up, I was literally running through the halls of the NAYA Family Center as a little kid, and now I serve professionally at NAYA as the government affairs manager, working to rectify some of the harms that have been done, some of the many harms that have been done on behalf of the U.S. government. So for me, doing this work every day is really reminds me of reading Sherman Alexie's book, The Absolutely True Diary of a Part-Time Indian, where while we have different experiences, him and I, there's striking similarities in many different ways within that book. And if you haven't read it, I would encourage you to read it. But for him, he grew up on the reservation and then went to an all-white school. And I've taken that to sort of adapt it to growing up in an all-white sort of dominant institutions, and being Native. And so the juxtaposition between the two has really helped guide me in this idea of walking in two worlds, where I'm Native, I'm Caucasian, and I'm living and predominantly working in very colonized systems. And so for me, I think back to last week, Mercedes and I were in Washington, D.C., advocating on federal legislative items that would rectify some of the harm done by the U.S. government around federal recognition of tribes, around boarding school policies that have harmed our communities for many years. And what comes to mind is the word reclamation. How do we, in a way, reclaim the power that's been stolen from us, and do it in a way that is community led and community driven, because ultimately community has the solutions to the problems that we're facing, not necessarily the government. I firmly believe that it's a top-down approach is not the most effective. It's a bottom-up approach. And so when I get up every day and I get to do the beautiful work that I get to do, and rooted in community, rooted in reclamation, rooted in providing opportunity to communities to prosper, not only now, but 7 generations to come. And that's what I think about every day is, I've lost count, but I have about 14 or 15 nieces and nephews. So, but I think about them and how I'm leading by example, how I'm showing up and being of service to them, to show them that these systems that they were born into aren't the systems that they have to live by, that we can revolutionize and energize and refigure what these systems look like if we have passionate, caring people at the table willing to do it. And I see a room full of those folks. So I think that for me, it's difficult to acknowledge the histories we've come from, but we have to, in order to rectify the harm done and create a future that is centered around people of color and centered around rectifying harm done. And so for community, I think that the beautiful thing about community and the work that I do is really centered around uplifting and providing enriching opportunities for those to not just, like I said, not just survive, but to thrive. And I think that's the critical component. Is oftentimes we have services in place that allow people just to survive, and that they think that's enough, but it's not. How do we move the needle from surviving, and we'll talk about survivance here in a little bit, but surviving to thriving? I want to leave this world when I take my journey and say, I helped one person become financially stable. I helped one person secure housing. I helped one person get access to stable food sources. That's what it is for me. It's not about the masses. Ultimately, that would be great, but it's about the one person. How do we change one person's lives today? And that's why I do what I do. That's what gets me up in the morning, despite the fact that we've come from a very racist and broken history in the United States and really throughout the world. And so that's what's sitting on my heart today is this idea of reclamation, and taking it a step further, this idea of reciprocity. How do we support each other in a way that's meaningful and rooted in our cultural teachings and our cultural values? So that's what I'm sitting with right now.
Goosebumps. So appreciating everybody's reflections here. I know we have more kind of thoughts and ideas and feelings to bring into the space, but to just offer another sort of facet of these conversations and how this shows up in the work. If we think about ICWA, the Indian Child Welfare Act, if we think about water rights, if we think about, all of these different policies that we are sort of in the process of interrupting and shifting. One of the things that some of our viewers might be familiar with, but some may not be, is the idea of sovereignty. So thinking about sovereignty, native sovereignty, tribal sovereignty, in this work, how does that idea and that vision and that, I guess, goal, how does that sort of live and breathe in the work that you do?
Stephanie, is that a me question or is that a panel question?
That is an anybody question. Bring
Okay.
it.
Anyone want to kick us off? I'm still digesting that a little bit.
I can offer something short, but I'm just responding to like, how does that show up in my work? And you know, I've been thinking about that a lot. And Will, I really appreciate you talking about, you know, the impact that you want to make where you'll feel satisfaction. Like, where will you feel satisfied? And I think I'm newly arriving to that. I think I resisted it for a long time. I think that I wanted to see bigger impacts related to my work. And like full systems change, full justice that's life affirming and generative, like, you know, just full transformation. And I'm not very patient. So maybe I'm learning patience. But I think also there's so much grief in that for me that am I settling? You know, just really having to ask myself some questions around how do I want to be effective and impactful in the scope of where I'm placing my energy, so that that I have stamina and not burning out. And learning about what burnout is also new for me. And part of that burnout is like having like strong, clear, non-negotiables about the ways in which I'll do work. That if it's not preserving, if it's not preserving myself, then I can't be involved with it. Yeah, I'll just stop there. But I think the biggest centering in my work related to sovereignty and self-determination is healing or replacing systems with that are rooted in colonial logics and colonizing ideas, with those that are more community oriented, that are fueled and nourished by Indigenous values, that are guided also by a practice of Indigenous values like reciprocity. Patience is one of them as well. And I think that ultimately the work I'm doing is Indigenous radical resurgence, as Leanna, Dr. Simpson would say. And I'll just throw that name out there too for any of the attendees that want to learn more about that. I really turn to her work a lot for my guidance. But I think that the key of what I'm doing is unsettling and interrupting and finding other ways to end systems of Indigenous erasure and genocide. And so whether that shows up in addressing gaps in curriculum, advocating for supports for our students within the university system, and you know, our voice and our needs to be centered in policy, practice, and programs, in data also, and using the language like data genocide. If we're not in the data, then you know, are there people in our community that are suffering and dying because we're not in the data? So we can't have a clear understanding of the true burden of the issue and problem. And then there's no opportunity for solution to remedy that issue. So that's an example of how I would go about a practice to build sovereignty and self-determination by unsettling systems of indigenous erasure and genocide within our practices and policies.
And I would just jump into for those watching and those in the call, I know Kelly as a friend and as a mentor. And Kelly, I just given the fact that this is a conversation, I'd also like to say that I think you're actively dismantling systems of colonization. I think that's one thing that you missed in giving yourself praise. And I think that's worthy of elevating because you're our ancestors' dream. Like you are doing what our ancestors, and it's going to make me tear up because it's so beautiful. Like you emulate such a beauty in the way you carry yourself and walk through this world is so selfless, and it is an act of service to everyone around you. And so I think that that's so important to elevate is you give so much of yourself to make sure that we have visibility, to make sure that we're recreating systems that are rooted in Indigenous values, but you're doing it in a way that like calls our ancestors into the space and makes them so proud to be your ancestor.
Wondering what else is kind of bubbling up for the group here today.
Okay, I'm so sad to say this, but can you like unpack the question a little bit with like ICWA in the water rights? I think, yeah.
One of the things that, and again, we can take this wherever we like, but thinking about the Indian Child Welfare Act and thinking about doing our work both inside and outside of systems, negotiating with the state the safety of our children, murdered and missing Indigenous women, right? Public health crises, data genocide, right? Like in a situation where we have to negotiate with the state for our survival, supporting the people who are joining us on this call to understand how that looks different in Native communities because of the idea of sovereignty. Does that help?
Yeah.
These are heavy questions for 10 a.m.
No, it's good stuff. So how does it impact, or what does it look like for Native communities? Like as far as like strategizing goes, when doing government to government relations?
Yeah, and you're welcome to take it anywhere that you want, but that's a beautiful road to go down, right? Like, how does that look different because of the idea of tribal and Native sovereignty?
Okay. Does anybody want to go?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah,
But
we want to go, Rosalie.
To support communities, for those people that want to be in allyship and accompliceship need to understand that sometimes policy advocacy in Native community looks different because of the idea of sovereignty. In different communities, sometimes the policy advocacy looks very different because sovereignty is in the conversation in a different way. I don't know if that helps.
I don't know if that helps either. But I
And if you
can
don't like that
jump in.
question, let's go in a different direction.
Yeah, maybe. So I went down the rabbit hole with Google and sovereignty and learned quite a bit. And there was a couple of sites that said, you know, sovereignty is made of 4 specific pieces or 5 specific pieces. And looking at that, I kind of felt hopeless, you know, like sovereignty is a dream and not a reality. And it could be just given the, you know, current context of my life and having just exited the role as an executive director of a social services department, tribal social services department, in just like my own level of burnout and kind of, I don't know, disillusionment maybe, or discussed, or I don't want to be too unprofessional, but it was hard. It was really hard, and there's a part of me that feels heartbroken, and so I think, in thinking about sovereignty and how do we carve that bubble out, and I am more leaning towards putting my energy into this space right here rather than the rest, partly for self-preservation. And when you're looking at sovereignty and even ICWA, I don't know that we can really achieve true sovereignty, because the government to government relationship between tribes and the federal government is one, they're our big daddy. And they're supposed, we gave up all of this land in exchange for free education and free healthcare. And, we're supposed to have all of these rights that are attached to that, various, fishing or, cutting down wood or hunting or, whatever these various rights are that are attached to the individual treaties. But the fact remains that until we can financially support our people and support the programs that our people need, we will never be sovereign. Until we can feed ourselves, we will never be sovereign. And so for Ho-Chunk people, that's not going to happen for us. We have these little tiny tracts of land throughout the state. All of our traditional lands have been developed. Our traditional foods aren't here anymore. There are some of them, but the vast majority, our traditional medicines, are not here. And that's the fact of it. There are, all tribes have different kind of strengths and weaknesses. Some of them have flourishing languages. You look at the Navajo Nation, I think 80% of their children are fluent speakers. For Ho-Chunk, we have less than 20 speakers now. And that was about 120 before COVID. And so, and I would guess it's like that for all tribes. We all have these deficits that prevent us from being our full tribal nations. Language, teachings, medicines, and that it's gone. So I guess maybe the definition of sovereignty needs to be updated, or kind of a new goal. So then sovereignty and how that works within a system, like let's say a tribal child welfare system, is that there's not very many tribes in the United States that are self-sufficient financially, and most of them is because it's gaming funds. Those couple tribes that don't need any assistance, they are one of 5 tribes that can afford to finance their own government with their gaming revenues, but they still have to answer to the BIA.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have, we're taking money from the state to, let's say, pay kinship funds for kinship families, everything about that is dictated by the state. We have such a tiny little piece of sovereignty to create our own programs that are actually going to be effective for our families. And I'm pretty sure we all know funding is everything. Whatever stipulations are attached to that funding, that can make or break the effectiveness of your program. And so I don't know, I hate to rain on everyone's parade, but I kind of feel at this point like sovereignty it's a beautiful myth, but we're beyond that time. Maybe if there's some catastrophic event, in the world, and all of a sudden we have no internet and no electricity, and the governments crumble, maybe then we would see true sovereignty. But otherwise, I don't know that it exists. I think it's a beautiful myth. Gee, Brianna, you look so sad. I'm sorry. I'm sorry to burst your sovereignty bubble.
These spaces are
You know-
about truth telling.
Yeah. Well, you know me.
I do. Bring it.
And I guess maybe, you know, we recreate a more realistic dream. You know, and I could see like advocacy would play a huge part in that, because you know, we were promised these things, and we don't, a lot of what we get is not adequate. It doesn't serve our people well. And so maybe the goal should be, you know, unrestricted funding, and having natives in all of those high up positions, you know, where they're approving our enrollment criteria, or, you know, people just saying, yeah, go ahead, do what you want. You're the expert, you do it. Yep. Yes, 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 yes. That would be really awesome. And this is kind of related, but kind of not. So last weekend we had our annual general council. It's once a year. We have 4 branches of the government, and one of the branches is the general council, and that's made up of all of the enrolled tribal members. So we meet once a year, and we vote on a lot of things that are like unconstitutional, and they're very expensive. We have tribal members around the world. They rent, you know, it's multi-million-dollar, these functions, these gatherings. And so a couple weeks ago, someone had asked me to help them edit a resolution that was proposing that all tribal members born before 1999 would become 100% Ho-Chunk, because we have so many children who come through the child welfare system who are not afforded protections or services because they are not enrolled and their parents are not enrolled. I want to say last year it was like between 300 and 500 children. And so they wrote up this resolution, and we had conversations ahead of time about how there was no way it was going to get passed because we get per capita, and that, you know, this would have a huge impact on the amount of money that individuals receive. But we are talking about, you know, in terms of like community readiness, are people even aware of this? This is going to be a great strategy to get people talking about the need for some sort of change to our enrollment criteria. Well, I'll be darned if it didn't pass. So now I'm 100% Ho-Chunk. Yay. And you know, that's really means something good in terms of my grandchildren. Like my oldest son's grandmother, she started telling him when he was very young, you have to marry a Ho-Chunk woman or your children will not be enrolled, will not be able to be enrolled. And so these are conversations that our, you know, our children and our young people are having, like, whoa, you know, how do we do that when we're related to everyone? You know, different kind of issues that may be common across Indian country, or they may be specific to us. I'm not too sure, but you know, we'll see. I've heard that there are tribes that have done that before. I know the Pawnee Nation, they did it about 10 years ago, and they did not get any flack from the BIA. The BIA just accepted it, and so we'll see now how, you know, how this all plays out.
With a heavy question, you answered it beautifully.
Thank you.
Just beautifully. I know Mercedes had some things coming up as well.
Yeah. It wasn't that. I'm still digesting that.
Yeah, yeah.
That's heavy. That is really heavy. I definitely.
And Rosella is really engaging with the question in a way that is really bringing things up for me, right? Like sovereignty is something that happens a lot, in that word floats around a lot, and sometimes in good context and sometimes in not good context, right? Like the governmental systems use that word like a brick to completely erase communities, right? Anyway, Mercedes, what's on your mind?
Oh yeah, definitely true. She definitely went deep with it. So thank you. And I'm one of those people that tend to forget like this overarching thing of like the enrollment thing, because I battle with that because it is so like each generation cut in half, and you can't be enrolled in 2 tribes. Like I'm Sioux, 15, 30 seconds, but I'm Sioux and then I'm also Seminole. I would never be able to enroll in both. You know what I mean? And then but I never think of that. Like I never claim that I'm really Seminole because I have this overarching dictation from the government saying, no, you're not that, even though I am that, that's in me. You know what I mean? So like, that's really interesting. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. And yeah, that was really something. But I was thinking about like the ICWA and the water rights. And I was like thinking like with our community and how it affects our community and what that's looking like. And for me, I think the fact that like for folks that want to be in alliance with, the first thing to do would be to like literally read the treaties, because they say it flat out, and they are hard to read in somewhat, but it's pretty clear. And like, I think I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but like treaties in Europe are like a big deal. Here, they're like optional, like, you know, like this afterthought thing, like, oh yeah, there's that, I was saying like, it's like a memo, like there's that thing, you know, there was a discussion there, you know, somewhere back there when, no, this was a binding thing. Like this was like an oath, a commitment, like this is what it is. And it was put in writing so that it wouldn't change later down the line, because these two nations came to an agreement, like for whatever reason, they came to an agreement. I wasn't there, but they came to an agreement, and this is what it was. So the fact that now we have to defend ourselves and say, no, you have to uphold your part, says something all in itself. Like, why is that happening? Like, that's not okay. You know, so that shows you like that whole genocide of a people is not in the past. That's not US history. That's US status quo. You are erasing me. You are telling me what I can and cannot do with my children, with my people. Like the point of the treaty of the ICWA Act was to say, our native kids need to stay with their native culture. For them to be stable and to flourish, they have to be able to be themselves. Like that is a thing all by itself. And I get there's a few women that, you know, I've seen the commercials and the, oh, well, you know, there's this family who wanted to adopt, but they can't because ICWA, you know, and but it's really like a selfish thing, you know, because then when you hear the stories of native kids who were adopted by white Americans, they'll tell you how much self-hate was there and how much identity crisis they have. And then they end up reverting back to their tribe and finding their people because they don't belong in that world. They're not white, you know, and they are, you know, they're just not white. And so that treaty was there for a reason, whether we decide that, oh, it doesn't work or not. It's there just like everything else, you know. And then with the water rights thing, I don't know a whole lot about the water rights. All I know is there was a treaty there that the US would make sure that they held up their end as far as when they pushed the Navajo Nation out to those reservations. Like, okay, we're going to make sure that the water and the land is, you know, habitable. Well, now it's not, you know, and so it's like on one end, the US government is saying, oh, no, we're not obligated to that. That's not our land. That's your land. And then on the other hand, they're like, oh, no, we get to come in and chime in when we want. Like, oh, no, we want to make sure we can adopt your children and we can impose on your tribal government, you know, even the fact that it's called tribal government, it's just government, you know, of another nation. But now we can come and we can move and go as we please or whatever. I just think that's so, you know, double standard, double-sided, and that's not a Native perspective. That's just what it is. So like to be in alliance with us is to look at that right there. That's common sense. There's a treaty there and it's real plain, you know, and it was signed for a reason. So like start with reading that. And when you read that, there's really not a big argument. Yeah.
I would agree. I think that what's been said already is beautiful, and just want to uplift and honor what's already been said. In terms of the the ICWA issue and conversations, you know, at the Supreme Court level, years ago, even it wasn't years ago, sorry, 2020, I guess a few years ago, the state of Oregon codified ICWA in state statute ahead of the Supreme Court ruling. And because ICWA was sort of up in the air. There was discussion about what it would look like to change it and potentially even overturn it. And so the state of Oregon passed House Bill 4214 in 2020, which would codify ICWA in state statute. And I think that to the issue of sovereignty, I totally hear that and feel the same. I think that what's important to note is that it's sovereignty is a tool that our leaders use to protect our nation inside of a nation state. And I think that's a really critical component of sovereignty, is that it's a tool to protect our people from other governmental organizations, if you will. And so working in a way that is mindful of that is important to community when we're dealing with potential, placements, cultural identity, enrollment, that sort of thing. And so that's what's sitting with me right now. And just want to uplift again and honor the words that have already been said.
Yeah, this is so good. I could see all of us were like activated in a good way by this question, as we're sort of as Rosella, you were talking about like the yarn and like pulling it apart. I think that's what we've been doing on this call with that question. And so what comes up for me when I'm hearing everyone's responses and ideas and experiences is that like the role of sovereignty allows us to advocate for our futures as Native people. Sovereignty, as Will was saying, is like a tool and for political advocacy, and as Rosella was talking about, is like a vision for us to move forward. And as Mercedes was saying, so we don't perpetuate the white dominant systems that we need to be made eliminated and fully erased from this planet, really. And so I see it as like a tool also for a vision and the guidance for us. As Indigenous people, we're sovereignty gives us that political recognition that moves us out of the category of like a race, a racial category. So that gives us some leverage to push against the U.S. nation state creeping in on us and enforcing assimilation practices and policies, because genocidal policies were not fully effective. So ICWA really helps to protect our sovereignty so that our children are remaining in intact Native family homes. One of the practices of genocide is to steal our children, to steal our children and, kill the Indian and save the man. These are historical sentiments that live on today. And when the Indian problem couldn't be erased, when we couldn't be fully erased from the land so that the land could become a tool for money making and power making for the dominant culture, we were displaced. We were our families were fractured. Our connection to culture was fractured. We were growing and surviving in conditions that were not good for us and did not want the best of us. And I see sovereignty as like that vision, that thing that we can harness to guide us forward in the best ways, so that we're creating the conditions that bring out our strength, build our strength, offer us opportunity to heal and decide what's best for us and what our futures are going to be. And to remind us that the future is Indigenous, right? Like the future is Indigenous. It is so important to build a relationship with the idea of sovereignty, I think, and to give it shape and meaning that also allows us to engage with the difficult complexities that Rosella, you were bringing up. Like those are such big truths, and often I think it's hard to kind of dive into those truths, but I think it's important. So I appreciate you bringing that up. And yeah, it's time to to continue to build language, right? Both Bell Hooks and Angela Davis talk about that, like the power of building language that serves our needs and moves us forward in the way that helps us to emerge forward what wants to emerge for the good things for us, creating the conditions that want the best of us and the best for us.
Can I say
Mercy.
something?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I was thinking about something else too, because I'm passionate about the whole government relations and their entitlement to engage in anything to do with our children. Just like Kelly said, like our stolen children, like this is another form of boarding school. They're stealing our children again. Like you don't have permission to take the children. Like they are our children. I can only imagine like what it feels like to have your child taken from you. And like I talked about this when Will and I, and when we went to speak to Congress about the Senate Bill 1723, the boarding school Truth and Healing Commission. My mom is a survivor of boarding school in Pine Ridge, South Dakota. She told me, she would tell us the story, and she would tell us how like at 5 years old, she was ripped from her grandma's house because for one, they didn't even feel her mother was capable of taking care of her, because they decide what a capable family looks like, just like with ICWA, they decide what traditional family looks like, and it looks like the American family that most Americans don't even have. So I don't even know if but that's a whole nother issue. But yeah, she said that she remembers the BIA, like them hitting her and her family, ripping them away and taking her far away to a secluded boarding school and hosing her down that night with cold water and cutting her hair. And we don't cut our hair. And beating her for speaking her language. And she watched it happen to her little brothers and trying to protect them. And she was beat for running away. And she said that they were only allowed to go home for about a week out of the whole year. And some families couldn't afford to come and get their children, and then some families would come because their children hadn't come home and now they're missing. And the nuns and the priests would say, oh, they ran away, like these are the kind of conditions that were happening to our Native children. So like, let's not forget that is why this is an issue. Like you cannot be trusted with Native children, and respecting and acknowledging that. And like, when she did, she couldn't take it. So she, eventually she ran away, but she was also abused in every way you could abuse a child there. And my uncle has a permanent, his pinky finger is permanently like, damaged because of being beat with a broom by a nun, and being scrubbed like with really hard things that you scrub pots and pans with, scrubbing their skins, telling them like, if you scrub hard enough, you can get the dirt off, dirt meaning brown, scrub hard enough to wash away the sins, like, you know, sick things like that that have happened to the children while they were not with their own families and with their own people. And so I think like, just like remembering just again, that history and what's happening is like the most thing, like it's the most beneficial thing that can happen for our fight and our advocacy and getting these policies that are that will serve us, or even upholding the policies that were supposed to serve us in the first place. I wanted to throw that in there.
One of the things, thank you so much for sharing, Mercedes. One of the things that we talk about often at UPRISE is how do we engage in harm reduction, knowing that this system wasn't designed to protect us, wasn't designed to help us feel joy, wasn't designed to help us heal. And these conversations, telling our truths, having solutions that come from community, remembering what our ancestors went through to get us to this place, that is part of healing. And so what you are doing today by telling your stories, talking about your work, talking about the pain and the joy and the confusion and the messiness of being Native people in today's world, like that is healing our communities. That is changing the way that people think about who we are, and that is creating a dynamic experience for who we are in the world today. So I have so much gratitude. I know that we've been listening to each other for a minute and sharing our stories. And I know that at UPRISE, we just very much are so grateful for everything that you have shared. And this is by no means the end of the conversation. And also, I just want to spend like 5 more days talking to all of you. I think like, you know, you all hit on so many like really important and messy topics. And like, for those of you that don't know, you know, through the boarding school era, which continues in a really different way today, as, you know, was mentioned multiple times, there was over 80% of our children were stolen and put into these schools. So almost every Native person that you meet has a relative that has been or experienced boarding school. My grandmother is a survivor of boarding school, right? Like so many of our children are still being taken and placed today into homes that do not understand us and oftentimes actively want to erase us. So the fact that we can be in this room, that we can reclaim who we are, that we can talk about things and how we can push forward in today's weird political climate, like those are acts of survivance. Those are acts of reminding us that we are still here. And I'm so grateful for these conversations. And so kind of to wrap us up, I just have one other question. Actually, it's 2 because I can't have one question. Where do you find the hope in the work that you do? And as we kind of think about moving forward into the world and that this will live on the interwebs somewhere, right? Like, what does it look like to be in solidarity with our communities? Because there are many communities, not just one, right? Around the policy work that you are doing, that you have been involved with, or that you hope to see in the world. So 2 big questions, no right or wrong answers, but jump in as you'd like.
Brianna, can you just repeat those questions again? I was writing them down.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I can put them in the chat for us too. Where do you find hope in the work that you do? And what does it mean to be in solidarity with our communities around policy advocacy, either that you are doing or that you hope to see in the future? Questions? Yeah, Mercedes, go ahead, start us off.
Okay, I'll make it quick so everybody can see it. Yeah, I was thinking about this. I think just having our eyes open and always remembering, like, we're not going to fit for our culture to survive. We're not going to fit peacefully or be like accepted into US policy. Like, it has to change. Like, no matter how much perfectionism or wanting to be accepted, like, it's just not going to work. That's a form of like Western culture. It's not for us. And and not kind of shutting down or turning off. Like one of the things that when we did go to the Capitol, like it wasn't a great experience for me because like slaves did build the Capitol, you know, and going in there was very cold. Like I wanted to jump out my skin. I wanted to hop out, you know, I wanted to get out of there. And even the historical monuments, like they're a reminder of other cultures like Black culture or Latina, Latinx cultures that suffered because of this thing that some people are celebrating and remembering, you know, not to shut off when we hear something that doesn't relate to us. Like if I hear something that has to do, you know, with maybe the Pacific Islander community, like I don't shut off because I'm like, oh, I don't belong to that community. Or, you know, if you hear, oh, the Black something, not shutting off because you're not, you know, you don't belong to that. Like that's being in solidarity. All my relations is not just like, okay, we're all here. Like we are truly all connected, and to not see each other and each other's struggles is a disservice to us. Like that comes back around in some form or another, and not in the way that you're hoping or you're thinking you can handle it. And I think knowing that will help us like just move towards a way that we're benefiting and we're making this place better than when we got here. And I mean, this generation got here. So yeah.
I think for for me, I find hope in community. And that's a very broad term. I acknowledge that, but you know, I'm going to share a couple instances just for the folks on this call. When Mercedes first started working in her role at NEA, she often says, and she says this publicly, so I feel like I can share it also, is that when I first started working in policy, I thought a bill was something that came to your house that you had to pay. And that's honestly the reality for so many folks in our community. But now her understanding of what a bill is, well, it still may be something that comes to your house and you have to pay. It's something that is a vehicle for change. And I think that's so important. And understanding that the intersections of community and policy, that like oftentimes our community is trying to just get by. And accessing systems of policy and systems change is oftentimes very difficult for folks who are living in this survival mode. And then I think about Kelly or Dr. Gonzalez and the work that Kelly's doing with the Indigenous Health Equity Institute around decolonizing public health. And as a directive from the state legislature from House Bill 4052, which declared racism as a public health crisis. And so Kelly's work has really been centered around uplifting community, hearing directly from community about what public health could look like in the face of decolonization. And that's what gives me hope every day, is our community who are willing to use the tools that they've gained to advocate for others around them, advocate for themselves, and continue to chart a path forward in a system that was historically designed against our people. And so that's what's coming up for me, is really just this like idea of survival and breaking down intergenerational systems that have not served us for so long.
Thank you, Mercedes and Will. Thank you so much. I'm sitting back here in mute saying, you know, and I can't wait to meet you all. Like, Will, I spend time with you in person in physical spaces, and I look forward to connecting more with you, Mercedes and Rosella. I really appreciate this space that has been curated for us. When I think about hope in the work, I immediately think about our youth, and oh gosh, it's so emotional to even say that. because I think about my kids, and I think about I think about our collective community and the healing that we've done to reclaim connection to each other and to culture, to cultural practice. Earlier I said I'd like to be on a beach eating mangoes, but really and that was kind of code for me to not go too deep and get too emotional, but really what I meant was, you know, I want the space and the opportunity to connect culturally. You know, I want to learn to bead, and I'm not always afforded that. So my kids are doing that, right? And they're doing it through their aunties and community. Ren made earrings for me, and was during COVID, and was on Zoom calls and calls with Shanoa and Shailene and Jillian Joseph, and that was her brave act of like taking a healthy risk to create something in a cultured way for me, because she wanted me to have something beautiful and to know that I deserve it and that it was coming from love and like just real good thoughts for me. And she did that in a collective way with support around her so that she could bring that into the world. And it's that kind of love and guidance that like gives me hope, because she's learning, my son is learning, our youth are learning that they matter, and they are in community, and they have community, and they can unfold the dreams that have already been inspired into them by our ancestors. A few years ago, it was before COVID, we were in a meeting with all of our staff and a leader from one of the universities, I'm trying not to say, and they were laying out this strategy, this plan for 5 years, and kept talking about actualization and like full equity and all these things, which are like great in concept. But I asked him a question. So what are you doing to prepare? Because my kids are on their way to this university. Our kids, meaning my kids and the community of our children, they know their songs, they know their native ways. And when they come into this system, are you prepared to embrace them as family and as whole humans, right? Like as the beautiful representation of us that they are. And he was honest in that moment and said no. And I appreciate that ability for him to lose his professionalism. I put that around quotes and get real. But I think we're putting that good protection around our youth so that they can get through these systems more intact when they get on the other side of those systems, because they have, like we've been doing our healing. So that gives me hope. That's like a long thread of hope on all these different points. So I'll just stop with that.
Thanks, Kelly. That was beautiful. Well, where do I find the hope? I think I find it very hopeful just to spend time with you all and hear your thoughts and know that Brianna and Stephanie are creating spaces for this regularly. yeah, I find a lot of hope in that. I am keenly aware of the differences just in each of our lives and our place in the world. And it's very different for me. I did spend some years in Portland, and that sense of community that I found with Brianna and Stephanie and some of the other students in our cohort was like really amazing. Like, man, I mean, just our collective spark was like brilliant. And I miss that. It's not really like that for me here. There's, I think, 3 Ho-Chunks with MSWs, and we all have very different focus and very different lives. And I've never had any type of a conversation with them. And most of my time and my focus is I guess really like micro, my family, my extended family, my church and spiritual practices, and so I don't spend really any time doing political advocacy aside from with the Ho-Chunk Nation legislature and the president. And so I'm really grateful for all of you that are doing the work because it is so important. Um, and I can't remember the second part of the question.
Just is there something that you want to share with people about how to engage in solidarity with the community as we move forward on topics that are important to us?
Well, yeah, I think that for me, I need to make more of a commitment to like find and join in the type of space that we're engaged in right now. And I'm willing to do that. And just, I guess, to throw a pitch out, for those of you who have the power to create something positive, the Ho-Chunk Nation has, they call it Woshka leave, and it's leave, it's cultural leave. And if you ever have the power to create that in your organizations, I would beg and plead for you to do that. It's really, really important. And for myself, I was an executive director through COVID, and when it was huge, gargantuan, we never got laid off. We never took a break. We, transitioned into a fully remote workspace. And at the end of that, when I was, could barely function and was experiencing burnout that like I didn't even know was burnout. When I took some time to figure out how I was going to be able to continue to do the work and be okay, I told my staff that I was going to max out my cultural leave, and I encouraged them to do the same thing because we are a spirit and we're made of energy, and we need to feed that so that we can be well, so that we can continue to be leaders and continue to do the work. And yes, it's called Aria, for us, Voshka. That's like our cultural and spiritual practices. That's the Ho-Chunk term for that, is Voshka. But I think it's important for all people, regardless of what your spiritual beliefs and practices are. And I don't know, I guess that was just totally random. Anyway. Anyway, I'm really glad to have spent this time with you all. I can't believe that when Brianna first sent me the thing and I was thinking, oh man, 2 hours, like, gee, that's really long time. And, are we going to be boring? And what am I going to think of to say? And do I have to do all kinds of research? And, but the time has just been really fast and I really enjoyed myself. So thank you.
Thank you, Rosella. I I just have such a big amount of gratitude from all the different places that you all come from, because you all do work that is so unique and so important to the community in like so many vital ways. Is there anything before we kind of wrap up our time together, knowing that this conversation could go on for another week, and we still wouldn't hit everything that we want to hit? Is there anything else anyone feels called to have to say or need to say in this space?
I just want to thank the UPRISE Collective for bringing us together, and for offering this space. Like it's been said before, it's just a beautiful opportunity to come together and discuss really important issues to our community. So thank you so much. I lift my hands to you all.
Thank you. I want to say something. Oh, go ahead, Kelly. Sorry.
You go ahead. I'll wait.
Yeah, I'll just say real quick. I think the importance that I've learned in my work, if I could send anybody home with anything, thinking about like what Will said about me not knowing what a bill was, how important it is to take the information that we learn and we gather and bring it back to community and invite them into these spaces. My brother just got recently released from prison after doing 10 years and 7 years prior to that. He's a drummer, he's a singer. He's a beautiful person. I get to teach him these things and in turn watch him grow and see like how much of an advocate he already is, but just having those little tools that were so freely given to me. Like when I started, I told Will, like, I was embarrassed. I didn't know, because I'm a college graduate and I'm a Bill Gates recipient. I still didn't know. I've only voted once in my life, and that was for Barack Obama. And I was embarrassed. And he said it was meant to make us feel like that. The system was meant to make us feel like that. And just that little bit of empowerment carried me for 2 years. And I turned into a beast when it came to legislature. And I just went for it. And when I say a beast, I mean using what I've got as my fuel to push the work that I'm doing forward. I didn't even know I had that in me. And so if I give that to someone else and they give that to someone else, that helps some burnout too, because now when I'm feeling low, I got somebody pulling me up. So I think that's important. Just like bringing community, you'd be surprised how many boring things that are boring for us that our family is like, oh, this is amazing, because like I've gotten access to privilege that my brothers didn't get, so. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercedes. That was really beautiful. Like what I'm hearing in the conversations is our collective commitment to and actions for healing the lasting impacts of colonialism, not just within systems and space, but also within us. And that our healing is, that entry point or that access or that modeling that breaks the generational trauma. And it's the acts that uplift our communities and like believing in sovereignty and believing in our worthiness, understanding that these policies of assimilation and genocide still live on and have been designed to keep us down and keep us out. Like recognizing all that is actually a radical evidence of our individual and collective healing. And it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. And I think that's our self-determination, that's our power. And having space like this, UPRISE, thank you. We're creating spaces of healing and power building, collaboration, dreaming. And there are so few spaces available to us like this. So we're creating what we need. And today reminds me that, and it's something I've been thinking about a lot lately. I think also because I was just at the Healing Our Spirit Worldwide conference, And so I've really been thinking about some of the work, like some of the Indigenous leaders from all over the world, and how we are really threaded as Indigenous people all over the world doing good things. It's legacy work. I've been thinking a lot about Eve Tuck's work on her paper on inner angles, talking about desired-based, research is what she talks about, but like what we're doing today is like we already are creating the worlds that we desire. Like it's not a thing in the future, like we're already doing it. And I think what I'm reminded of and like feel grief around and humbled by is that our people have been creating the worlds that we desire forever, even in the context of settler colonialism. Right? We've been creating what we desire all along. And it took me a while to see that and believe that. And I think it required my healing from my own internalized colonialism and racism to be able to step into that and to feel that emotion of grief and shame that comes with that as well. So thank you, UPRISE, for creating this space for us. And thanks to everyone who came here to be part of this. And I'm just really thankful to you all.
Well, thank you all for sharing. Thank you all for sharing parts of yourself, parts of your stories. Like this work and it can be very very emotional, but those emotions are what is part of who we are as people, right? Like that is, our stories cannot be separated from the emotions, from the joy to the trauma to everything in between. Like that is what brings us to these spaces as authentic people, and that is what changes the trajectory of how we live and how we operate in the world and how people interact with us. So thank you again for sharing parts of yourselves and your stories and your communities and your ancestors with us today. As Mercedes, you were talking, I was just reminded of one of the elders, one of the board members, Theda Newbreast, said something recently that just like, as you were talking, just like came into my mind. No one is disposable, right? This idea that in our community, we need everybody to feel that uplift, to be their full authentic selves, and to like come to this place with us, because nobody is disposable. So thank you all. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you to everybody that has joined us. Thank you to everybody who's going to be watching this later. Thank you to our captioner. Thank you to our ASL interpreters, making the space a little bit more accessible for our community. We're going to go ahead and wrap up, and then we're going to ask the people that win the raffle to send me your mailing addresses. So we'll end the recording now, but thank you all so much. I have so much gratitude. UPRISE is so lucky that you all chose to join us this morning on a Saturday morning at 10 a.m. So thank you.